My wife took me to therapy to blame me, but the therapist whispered something that changed everything. We were just 2 years into marriage when I suggested couples therapy. I thought we needed help. She thought it was her stage. From the very first session, my wife launched into a flawless performance. Tears, trembling voice, accusations of abuse. I was stunned silent. But then, the therapist asked one question. Just one. And something in my wife's perfect story didn't add up. That tiny crack? It split open a truth I had buried for far too long. A truth that would lead me down a terrifying path of manipulation, false accusations, hidden recordings, and a final whisper that made me question everything I thought I knew about love, sanity, and safety. You won't believe how it ends. The day I suggested therapy to Jenna, I truly believed I was fighting for our marriage. After 2 years, our relationship had morphed into something I barely recognized. A constant minefield where every word, every gesture, seemed to spark another round of accusations. That evening, she lashed out again. This time, she claimed I was sabotaging her career by disturbing her while she worked from home. The crime? I had asked if she wanted coffee. It wasn't the first time. Just a month earlier, I was apparently trying to ruin her friendships because I had laughed too hard at a joke her college roommate made at dinner. Before that, I was financially manipulative for asking if we could talk about budgeting, after she dropped $3,000 on designer clothes in a weekend. Each confrontation followed the same exhausting pattern. I'd be confused, she'd be furious, and I'd end up apologizing for something I never did. I brought up therapy as a desperate attempt to change things. We need help communicating, I said, bracing myself for impact. To my surprise, she agreed instantly. A little too instantly. Her eyes sparkled, not with relief, but something colder. Perfect, she said. Someone objective should hear everything that's been happening. Something in her tone twisted in my gut. Still, I pushed forward. She insisted on choosing the therapist, spent hours scrolling profiles before selecting a seasoned woman named Dr. Olivia Hart, someone with 20 years of experience. I hoped that meant wisdom. Our first session was a Wednesday afternoon. I walked in with quiet optimism, hopeful that a neutral voice could untangle the mess we'd become. Dr. Hart welcomed us warmly and explained the ground rules: confidentiality, mutual respect, how she approached couples' work. Then she asked why we were there. Before I could speak, Jenna launched into a monologue that sounded like it had been rehearsed in front of a mirror. Her voice trembled just enough to feel convincing. "I'm at my breaking point," she said. "Nothing I do is ever good enough for him." She cried, on cue, painting me as a cold, dismissive man who constantly tore her down. She described a version of me I didn't recognize, a controlling husband who monitored her phone, belittled her work, isolated her from friends. The stories were just believable enough, carefully twisted around slivers of truth. I sat there, stunned, my voice caught in my throat. How do you defend yourself without sounding defensive? How do you refute lies without reinforcing the picture of a combative partner? I tried to stay calm and speak plainly. "We've been having communication issues," I said. "I thought therapy might help us understand each other better." Dr. Hart's expression shifted slightly. She asked Jenna follow-up questions, not generic ones, but specific. "When exactly did he prevent you from visiting your parents?" she asked. Jenna hesitated. Her timeline wobbled. Her story started to crack. By the end of the session, Dr. Hart suggested something unexpected: individual sessions for each of us before we continued joint therapy. Outside, Jenna was livid. "She clearly doesn't understand relationships," she snapped. "We need a new therapist." But I'd noticed something during that session. For the first time, someone else saw it. Saw her. That glimmer of recognition in Dr. Hart's eyes gave me hope. Not for the marriage, but for myself. 3 days later, I was back in the office alone, seated across from Dr. Hart. She asked about my childhood, my past relationships, how I met Jenna. I answered honestly, watching her process my words with quiet intensity. After a while, she asked, "Tell me about your daily life at home." I told her about walking on eggshells, about the nights I slept in my car after fights, the time Jenna hurled a wine glass that shattered against the wall, the threats to tell everyone I was abusive if I ever left. Her pen moved across her notepad, steady and unemotional. Then she asked a question that hit harder than anything. "Do you feel safe at home?" It caught me off guard. No one had ever asked me that. Men aren't supposed to feel unsafe in their marriages. especially not with their wives. I paused. Not really, I admitted. She nodded. Your wife had her individual session yesterday, she said carefully. I can't share what she said, but I want you to know, I approach every situation with an open mind. The way she said it, the weight in her voice, told me everything I needed to know. Jenna wasn't fooling her. Not completely. The following week, we had our second joint session. Jenna was in full performance mode, dressed in neutral tones, anxiety etched into her face like it had been painted on. She clutched a tissue before even sitting down. It's gotten worse, she said. He said he'd leave me penniless if I filed for divorce. It never happened. When I gently corrected her, she turned to Dr. Hart with wide, wounded eyes. See how he gaslights me? She whispered. Dr. Hart didn't flinch. Can you walk me through exactly what was said and when? Jenna's narrative buckled again. Her voice rose. Her emotions flared. She accused me of turning the therapist against her. I'm not taking sides, Dr. Hart said. I'm trying to understand the patterns. Jenna's face tightened. She adjusted her tone, tried to rebuild the facade. But the damage had already begun. Dr. Hart proposed an exercise. Describe a recent disagreement from both perspectives. Jenna went first, detailing an incident at a work function where I'd supposedly humiliated her. When it was my turn, I said simply, I haven't been to any work function with her in over 6 months. The silence in the room was deafening. The therapist's gaze lingered on Jenna's face for a long, loaded moment. The lie about the work event had unraveled in real time. And for the first time, I think Jenna realized she wasn't in control of the room anymore. She fumbled. I must have confused the dates, she said softly, eyes darting toward Dr. Hart. I've been under a lot of stress lately. The therapist didn't press the point further, but the shift was unmistakable. Jenna knew it. I knew it. Outside, the car ride home was deathly quiet. When we finally pulled into the driveway, Jenna sat with her seatbelt still on, staring out the windshield. That therapist, she said flatly, is unprofessional. She's obviously into you. I didn't take the bait. I recognized the tactic. Discredit the witness. She had used it on my friends, on coworkers, and now on a licensed professional who saw through her act. But it was too late. The curtain had been lifted. My next individual session with Dr. Hart felt different. She was still warm and professional, but there was something more deliberate in her tone. She didn't waste time. I've been doing this for 2 decades, she began, her hands folded neatly over her notepad. And in that time, I've learned to recognize patterns. You may not like what I have to say, but I think it's important that you hear it. She didn't call Jenna names. She didn't make wild accusations. But she asked the right questions about isolation, about gaslighting, about emotional safety. I told her the truth. I had no one left. Friends had faded away, each driven out by conflict Jenna created. Family lived far away and were often conveniently busy during my calls, mostly because Jenna had picked fights during nearly every phone conversation. That's not accidental, Dr. Hart said carefully. In relationships like this, isolation is a control mechanism. She suggested something that felt both thrilling and dangerous. Reconnect with someone, a friend, a relative, without telling Jenna. Just one person, she said. Let's start there. That afternoon, I sat in my car and called Nate, my old college roommate. I hadn't spoken to him in nearly a year. 15 minutes later, I ended the call with something I hadn't felt in a long time, clarity. We made plans for lunch. I didn't tell Jenna. And for the first time in years, I had a secret that wasn't shameful. It was mine, and mine alone. But Jenna wasn't done. Not even close. By our third joint session, she arrived armed with a new tactic. Printed screenshots of text messages, meant to portray me as emotionally manipulative. But something was missing. Every screenshot showed only my replies. No context, no instigating messages from her. This is abuse, she said dramatically, sliding the papers across the table. These are just a few examples. Dr. Hart examined them slowly. Then, she asked the question that pierced the performance. Do you have the full conversation threads? Jenna froze. I deleted them, she said quickly. They were too upsetting to keep. I understand, Dr. Hart said gently. But when I only see one side, it's hard to understand the full picture. That's when it happened. Jenna's composure cracked. For just a moment, the mask slipped. Her eyes narrowed. Her voice turned sharp. Why don't you believe me? She snapped. This is exactly what he does. Makes me look like I'm crazy. Then she turned to me, tears materializing like clockwork. Tell her, she pleaded. Tell her you wrote those things. I nodded. I did, I said simply. But they were replies to 3 hours of accusations and insults. The air in the room was heavy. Dr. Hart took a slow breath. There's a pattern I'm starting to notice, she said quietly. When I ask for specific information, the response tends to become emotional rather than factual. That's something we need to explore. Jenna's expression turned icy. You're taking his side. This whole process is biased. She stood, trembling with rage. This is a waste of time. I'm filing a complaint. Dr. Hart remained calm. That's your right. My door is open if you'd like to continue. Jenna stormed out, the office door slamming hard enough to rattle the framed degrees on the wall. I sat there, stunned but oddly relieved. Dr. Hart finally broke the silence. If you'd like to continue individually, she said, I think that would be beneficial. I nodded. I already knew therapy wouldn't save the marriage, I admitted. But maybe it can save me. That night, Jenna cycled through her usual tactics: tears, rage, accusations that I was sleeping with Dr. Hart. When none of them landed, she grew cold. The next morning, she announced she had found a real therapist. He actually gets relationship dynamics, she said, a cruel smirk on her face. First sessions next week. She was beaming, triumphant. She thought she'd found someone more malleable, someone she could manipulate. What she didn't know was that I had already scheduled another solo session with Dr. Hart, and I had no intention of canceling it. When I returned to Dr. Hart's office, she greeted me with the same calm warmth, but her energy was heavier than usual. She closed her notebook, something she hadn't done before, and leaned forward. There's something I need to say, she said softly, and I need you to hear it clearly. Her voice dropped, as if she didn't want the walls to hear. What you're experiencing, she said, has a clinical name. It's emotional abuse. The words hit like a cold slap and a warm hug at the same time. She went on. I don't usually say things like this so directly, but in rare cases, it's necessary. She slid a business card across the table. This is a support group. They work with men in abusive relationships. They can help with legal guidance, too. I stared at the card. For a moment, I felt like I was looking at a life raft from underwater. Then she said it, the words that changed everything. I'm saying this as plainly as I can, she said. You need to run from this toxic woman. Not next month. Not when she gets better. Now. That warning, run from this toxic woman, stuck with me like a match pressed into my skin. For the first time, someone wasn't just validating the pain. She was giving it a name and a direction. I took the card. I didn't go home and confront Jenna. That would have been pointless. Instead, I started quietly gathering the pieces of my escape. I called the support group. I talked to a counselor who, with chilling ease, identified every move Jenna had made: the isolation, the gaslighting, the staged breakdowns, even the sudden pivot to a new therapist. This isn't rare, he said. It's calculated. And the moment she senses she's losing control, she'll escalate. So I escalated first, quietly. I found a divorce attorney. We met 2 days later in a windowless office downtown. He listened carefully, barely blinking, then said, You're in a textbook coercive control relationship. Document everything. And prepare for retaliation. That night, while Jenna slept in the same bed, I emailed myself copies of important records. Birth certificates, insurance info, photos of financial documents. I tucked Dr. Hart's business card into my wallet like it was sacred. Because it was. I kept playing along in couples therapy with Jenna's new pick, a soft-spoken man named Dr. Reynolds who nodded dutifully as she spun tales of my supposed cruelty. When I tried to clarify or offer my own experience, he labeled me defensive. She ate it up. See, she said after one session. He gets us. But I wasn't there to be understood. I was there to buy time. Every evening, while Jenna was in the shower or on the phone pretending to be the doting wife, I packed pieces of myself into silence. I rented a small apartment in another zip code, paid for 3 months up front in cash. I arranged a P.O. box. I opened a separate bank account and quietly redirected a portion of my paycheck. The support group connected me with a former cop who specialized in false allegations. She'll try to flip the narrative, he warned. Be ready with proof. Then came the slip-up. I came home early one Friday and found her on my laptop, reading my emails. Specifically, the thread with my divorce lawyer. Her head turned slowly toward me. Her expression was flat. Hollow. "So this is your plan?" she asked. "After everything I've done for you?" She tried the usual routine, wounded shock, trembling hands. Then it turned cold. "No one will believe you," she said. "You think you're the victim? I've already told people about your anger issues, about your emotional abuse. I have texts. I have emails." I didn't flinch. Instead, I took out my phone and pressed play. "If you've made it this far, you already know this isn't just a story. It's real. It's raw. It's what so many go through in silence. If this hits something in you, a memory, a feeling, or just a quiet me too, please like, share, and subscribe. Speech Balloon, your support helps us bring more of these untold truths into the light. You're not alone. And maybe, just maybe, this story helps someone find the strength to say, "This isn't love, and I deserve better." A recording. Her voice, crystal clear, from weeks ago. "If you ever try to leave me, I'll ruin your life. I'll tell everyone you hit me. I'll destroy you." She froze. "You recorded me?" she hissed. "That's illegal." "Single-party consent," I said, eyes locked on hers. I checked. The shift in her face was instant. The fury melted into something softer, desperate. "You misunderstood. I was upset. But we can fix this. We can still make this work." I packed a duffel bag while she sobbed in the hallway. When she saw I wasn't bluffing, she called friends. Claimed I was having a breakdown. That I was suicidal. That she feared for my safety. 2 friends showed up. I played another recording. Her mocking those same friends, calling them pawns she could turn on and off. They helped me carry boxes to the car. Jenna stood on the porch, mascara streaking down her cheeks like war paint. As I turned the key in the ignition, she said quietly, "If you walk out that door, I'll destroy everything you care about." I didn't even look at her. "You already tried," I said. "That's why I'm leaving." The first night in my new apartment, I didn't sleep. Every noise felt like a threat. Every silence, a trap. But I was free. Or at least on the road to it. Over the next few days, Jenna launched her counterattack. She called my job. Claimed I was stealing. Then she filed a police report alleging years of physical abuse. Complete fiction. But the thing about liars is, they get sloppy when they're panicking. The detective she spoke to was already in contact with my support group. I had evidence. Timeline contradictions. Recordings. Messages she forgot she'd sent. Witnesses she didn't think I'd ever contact again. Her house of cards started to shake. Then it collapsed. 3 days later, she showed up at my office. Screamed in the lobby until security escorted her out. Her manicured image, the polished victim, shattered in front of coworkers and HR. I filed for a restraining order the next morning. She violated it within a week. More texts, emails, anonymous social posts accusing me of mental instability. Her final move was the most grotesque. She created fake accounts pretending to be me, sending disturbing messages to colleagues and friends. But I had learned how to fight back, without rage, without revenge. Just truth and receipts. Dr. Hart wrote a professional letter documenting the deception she had witnessed. My lawyer handled the rest. The divorce dragged. Of course it did. She contested everything. Rejected fair settlements. Demanded evaluations. Filed complaints. But she wasn't doing it to win. She was doing it to stay tethered to me. "People like Jenna don't want reconciliation," Dr. Hart said in our final session. "They want connection, any kind. As long as you're still reacting, they still have you." 6 months after I left, I was finally standing on solid ground again. Some friendships didn't survive her smear campaign, but the ones that did, they were unshakable now. "You look different," Dr. Hart told me. "You're here now?" "Fully." I smiled. "I finally feel real again." Leaving didn't fix everything, but it was the beginning of everything worth fixing. The night before the divorce finalized, I found the business card she gave me all those months ago. It was worn, creased, but still there. She had whispered, "Run," when I needed it most. But I was the one who ran. One step at a time. One truth at a time. Away from the blame show. Toward my own life.